of the Board of Council on Global Affairs, and he had a distinguished business career at the Quaker Oats Company, where he worked for his entire working life. It was while building the international division of Quaker Oats that Dad developed what eventually became a lifelong curiosity, passion, and commitment to Latin America. He traveled there extensively in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s, and helped to develop Quakers' markets in nearly every country of Central and South America. In the late 60s, Dad became one of the first board members of the Inter-American Foundation, which was an independent government agency created to fund development projects undertaken by grassroots groups and NGOs in Latin America and the Caribbean. So from a business and cultural perspective, Dad was well acquainted with Latin America. Since evolving from an annual lecture series to the visiting fellowship that it is today, the Hart Fellowship continues to focus on strengthening relations between Chicago and Latin America. This year marks the 11th Visiting Fellow, who is contributing to the advancement of society through economic, political, and social reform. Each Hart Fellow spends a week in Chicago interacting with leading figures and organizations as part of a program that is tailored according to the Fellow's interests, experiences, and expertise. The Hart Fellow is selected by a committee of people who are knowledgeable about the economy, the politics, and social environment of Latin American countries. And I want to thank all those who participated in that process. Sorry. I am very pleased to introduce Rosa Anaya, a human rights activist and peace-building advocate who is working to change the lives of at-risk youth through the Second Chance program of Catholic Charities. Rosa has been long involved with organizations focusing on these issues, and her work is highly respected within El Salvador as well as outside of the country. I know our mother, Margaret Hart, who was the driving force behind the creation of the Hart Fellow and who recently passed away this winter at the age of 97, would have been very pleased that Rosa Anaya is this year's Hart's Fellow. I know we all look forward to hearing from Rosa about her work in El Salvador as well as her experience this past week in Chicago. Thank you.
Hello. How are you feeling today? Good? What's good? Good is not a feeling. Can you tell me how you feel today? Warm and toasty. Okay. Thank you. Excited to hear me speak. What else? Feeling happy. Well, today I'm feeling very honored to be here with you. I keep telling people that wherever the universe places me, there must be a reason. So I'm thankful because the time that you spend today with us here talking to each other, it is precious. You know, it is the only thing we cannot get back, and yet you chose to be here. So thank you so much for coming here tonight and listening to this story that is little bits and pieces of what El Salvador is. Before I start talking about the program, which is the Second Chances program, I want to say I'm Rosa Anaya. Everybody calls me Rosita because I'm so tiny. And it just brings the good side of me, because when you call me Rosa Anaya, it could be my mom saying, honey, what have you done? I was born in El Salvador, in a country where I was telling this story the other day because I literally am the product of love out of war. And what I mean by that is my parents met in very hard situation. They were both survivors of a massacre in 1975, July 30th. And when my father would come, when my mother was very badly injured, And he would come. They were both students at the law school and in the National University. And he would come and tell her what had happened, who had been killed, who had been disappeared. But at the same time, he would come with his poems, a little song, and there was Rosita next year. Yep. So literally, as I said, that is one important piece of my story that it can explain why for me it's so important that despite the conditions that we're in, we always find a way to bring life in different senses. So I grew up thinking and listening about what human rights are, but I was taught to live human rights, not read about them, but to live human rights. And to be able to do that, I had to go through really hard process. My father was captured in 1986. He was tortured for 15 days. When he came out of the 15 days of torture, he was sent to a prison, the Esperanza Mariana prison. And he started to, he was crying when he saw my mother for the first time. A lot of people say that I have his dark humor. And she thought, oh, he's going to be okay, like he's going to be laughing and just ready to continue. But he was really badly injured, and he was tired. And he said, I can't continue. He was the head of the Non-Governmental Human Rights Commission at that time. And she started to talk to him about everything that people had been doing to find him, because for 15 days, we did not know where he was. He was finally released a couple of months later, and he was assassinated in 1987 on October 26. Today, that is the national day where we celebrate human rights activists in El Salvador. It's a national holiday now. And it was in memory, not only of my father who fought for human rights, but also for all of the many lives that had to be given during the war in order for us to be able to do the work that we do today. We did not solve many of the problems that we had. The reasons why the war broke in the first place are the same reasons why we migrate today. The same reasons why we have to have second chances program. I work, and I heard that here in Chicago from somebody else that we visited, this idea that I work in order for me to have no more job, because we don't want to continue this cycle. So I do the work I do because I feel the need that we need to go through a process of grieving, to seek justice, but not to confundir, to mistake justice is equal to revenge. And many times when there is no justice and impunity is what we feel is the only thing happening in our country, then we think that revenge is the only way. And I'm here to say that that is not the case. I had to go through a process of thinking, what needs to change in order for the cycle of violence to stop? And I thought of the person who killed my father, and I thought of the person who tortured my father. It had to be hard for them too. I have to believe that. So let me pause right there, because everything I do today and what you're going to see in the presentation has its roots in my personal experience. If I have to go hugging every single inmate in El Salvador to prove that peace is possible, that is what I'm going to do. So, second chances. Well, first of all, this is El Salvador. How many of you guys know or been or heard about El Salvador? Wow, awesome. And here we are, this little itsy bitsy tiny place, about the same size as New Jersey. I've never been to New Jersey, so I'm just quoting the internet. That's what they said. There's about 6.5 million people in El Salvador. 20% of our population lives outside of El Salvador. And everywhere I've been, I've always found a Salvadoreño, so we're pretty much taking over the world someday. We are on 189 countries where the Human Development Index is measured. We're on 121, just to give you an idea. I have to say this is important. You know, a lot of people here have constantly asked me about migration issues. And migration for me, I will say, always say, migration is a right. And asylum is protected by the international law. And so we need to protect, there's a reason for it to exist. I am here today because I was granted political asylum in Canada in a time of need, because I was being persecuted. I was 10 years old when my dad was assassinated. So when we were seeking asylum, we were granted that asylum at a very hard moment. And like I said before, same reasons before, same reasons today. Violence, economic situation, and there is something that is pushing people to migrate internally, but also to migrate externally, and is the lack of opportunities. We are agriculture-based. A lot of our people were born from the land, stick to their land, and that opportunity, because of many reasons, is being taken away. So you will see a lot of people internally migrating to the urban areas, and also when they don't find those opportunities in the urban areas, then leave to various countries. But I also want to say that not only migration is a right, but we also have the right to stay. And we have to create the opportunities in our countries for migration to become an option. It should be a choice. It shouldn't be like it is today, that if I'm being persecuted, if violence is kicking me out of my country, I have to decide either to live or die. And that shouldn't be the reason to migrate. We should be dreaming about a better life, not only wanting to move because I need to stay alive. So to give you an idea of the work that we do, Catholic Relief Services in El Salvador is the only country that right now is doing work in prisons. I understand from last week that we're going to start a small pilot in Sarajevo from what we learned in El Salvador. But to give you an idea of why we started this work, in 2011, this is very important, the women prison had 900% overcrowding. 900%. Can you even imagine what that would look like? What you see here are pictures of one of the prisons back in the day, and those are the conditions where people live. So to us, it's very important to understand those conditions are where we want to go talk about peace building. There is a connection between what's happening in the streets and what's happening in the prisons. And like we said, Catholic Relief Services not only works inside the prisons, but is doing prevention work, which is what we need to do and invest so no one gets to that place. But when they get to that place, we have to take care of business. What's going to happen after that? We were I think we're in second. At this point, we're the third highest rate incarceration. I think we're second right now. Can you guess who's the first one? Since we like to copy everything you guys do. I mean, we just want to be right there next to you. So I think we're the second highest rate incarceration right now. And we have around 39,000 people in prison. What you see here, there's a little chart, and this picture, which is very recently taken, the government is taking those pictures and putting them on billboards and saying, you know, scaring kids and saying this is what gangs will look like if you don't join a gang, this is what you're going to end up doing. I have my own thoughts on that, but I'm just saying and stating the fact that those are the government's publicity to scare kids out of gangs. And what you see there, it is what it is. That is the type of the idea that we have of how we're going to treat people inside of the prisons. The number of people being incarcerated has been constantly growing since 2003. You can see that overcrowding, it doesn't match because even though the amount of people is growing, the overcrowding has come down. Now, how did that happen? Well, we created more spaces, right? So it's not because we've had this process where we let people out, but we've created more spaces to have a little bit less overcrowding, but that doesn't mean we came from, last year was 300, and we're at it says 140, 150% overcrowding over the entire system. To give you an idea, and I don't have that here, but to give you an idea of where we're putting our efforts, there is 28 different prisons in my country, and there's only one state-run university. So that gives you an idea of what it is that we want to do with our young people. What we found when we went into the prisons is there's no evidence-based rehabilitation program. There are some programs being implemented in those prisons, but you've seen the conditions. I always tell people, who's going to want to come out of there hugging a tree, right? Like, the conditions themselves are not helping. We have, since 2015, there was a program called iChange program, which is a government-run program. And what it is basically is it assesses every single person in the system, and they figured out what can you do. So the fact that you're in prison doesn't mean that you forgot the skills because you were a carpenter before, or you might have been a doctor, or you know how to make hammocks, or you name it. You know, what can you do? Can you tell me a skill you have? There you go. So taking care of children would be a skill. So how do we assess all of the skills we already have inside of the prison? Because no one else is coming into prison to do any work. No one's going to invest here, so it's us, ourselves, and that's it. So they started the iChange program, which the basis is the one that knows something will teach the one that doesn't. And there you had 39,000 teachers that in the cycles of 6 months are teaching others how to do something, and everybody's engaged. What doesn't happen there? You can learn a skill, but that doesn't mean that you've changed. So, there is, in El Salvador, there is what I call one system, but two worlds. Because we've segregated people that are gang-related and non-gang-related population. And we still have, and you guys have heard a lot of rhetoric around gangs and, it's the monster under the bed that is going to come and get you. But what's happening here is that the system isn't classifying people by the type of delito. Help me out. Thank you. Oh, you guys speak Spanish. Great. Great. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. Not by the type of crime. There is no profiling. They try. But if you were a gang member at whatever point, you will be a gang member in the system forever. And you will still come up in the assessment tool as high risk. Doesn't matter how much you've changed. So we've segregated those two populations, and gang members basically have no rights. So what you see there, that wasn't made up, the picture, it is what exists. And you have that other world where they're trying to bring the iChange program and other programs to do rehabilitation, hard skills and soft skills. So for me, it's one system, two worlds. What do? We are being funded by INL, and I can't remember the long name, International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Agency, or Bureau, or something like that. They are my angels, because we thought it was I didn't think they were going to fund us, to be totally and completely honest. And they know this. I tell them all the time. Their focus is on security. Security more in the sense of police and that idea of security. And we're focused more on development and human development. And so somehow we convince them that there should be a marriage between security and peace building, because one and the other have to go hand in hand in order for things to be able to have sustainability. So we were being funded to work in 3 prisons at the beginning. Currently, we're being funded to work in 5. But because of the alliances that we've created with other people, with the system, and with other NGOs, currently we're in 8 prisons. And next month, we might be in 13 different prisons. Same people, no more funding. It's just, how do we do the best with what we have? So, the type of work that we do. What do you see there? Okay, a rotten apple. What does that mean? Can you tell me? Sorry? One bad apple spreads and rottens the rest, right? So traditionally, when we work in prisons, we think of the bad apple, especially if the rotten apple is always painted like this, right? The worst of the worst. And let's just put that rotten apple in there, so that we don't see its ugly face forever and ever. Let's throw away the key. And we relish, right, in our collective revenge. You learn your lesson, little bad apple. And if we continue down that path, well, just let them rot all together. They're all bad anyway, right? While us good people in the society live the good, nice, safe place in paradise. But what happens when bad apple gets out? Because they will. And in the prison, there's people that do the shouting, because there isn't a communication. This is super cool. Like, I have this microphone and you guys can hear me, but that doesn't exist in the prison. So they go yelling your name, somebody that has a really good voice goes out and shouts your name whenever you need to be called. So they're calling little bad apple, You're getting out. I don't know about you. I've seen Harry Potter, right? There's a lot of magic going on. But I don't think that the conditions you just saw before are going to turn little bad apple magically into this beautiful, bright, green apple that you are willing to take home, right? What happens then? And we have to think outside of the box. I was just asked this question. What is the problem that we need to solve? And I think that probably solving problems isn't my thing. My thing is asking the right questions. Because if you ask the right questions, then you can actually start thinking outside the box to find the back ways into solving things. So we can continue in our thinking of this wasn't me, this is not my problem, or actually contribute to solutions. Let's start by asking, what were the conditions where that apple grew up, was exposed to, the sort of violence that they had to live through? When you create a space where only violence is normal, then how do you expect a different outcome? And that is hard to do because we have to remember that we are the good ones, right? As good ones, we are creating the conditions that will allow somebody to go down the drain. So when we have to become responsible and think about what our role is in creating those conditions, it's not so fun because we don't look so good then. Second chance is what we've done is we've changed our approach from trying to fix the bad apple. And, usually you bring all of these different services to the bad ones because they have to become good. And we're trying to think of the system. If the system is not working and is broken, how can we then work with the system to have a different approach, to have different thinking, different solutions? So what we do is we stop working only with the inmates and we spark the good interests of the guards, which wasn't interest at the beginning. They were actually very suspicious of us because they sent the guys that they sent to the program, they weren't the nicest ones in the prison. And all of a sudden they were being so nice to them. And there was one incident, I remember the guys, we did a little celebration inside of the prison, and we brought a cake. And the guys, it wasn't us, I promise you, they cut a little piece of cake. And you've seen the conditions. Cake doesn't come along very often. They still were willing to share a little piece of cake with the guards. And the guards were like, is this poisoned? So when we did that, they said, how can we understand? I don't understand what's going on. Like they were just asking all of the guys, what? What CRS is doing with you guys? Really? And so we said, let's teach them the purpose of peace building. And so we started to work with the guards and on a basic level, trying to get them to understand what peace building, what the purpose of peace building was. And remember how we convinced Ionel on this? That little marriage we had between two things, what was it? Do you remember? Security and peace building? Well, we did the same with the guards. We said, look, the more the guys know about how to control themselves, how to think, how to resolve and transform a conflict, how to be nice to the other person. Don't you think that helps you with your job? Because you're the one that is supposed to bring all security inside of the prison. I never thought about that. You're right. And then we started to work with the technical teams. And then we went to the authorities. So it was like a snowball effect. We didn't go to them. They came to us because they were so curious. So one thing that everybody would come back with is, you're very nice. It seems like, you believe in this stuff. Obviously, you're here because it's something important that you want to do in your life. But I really don't believe you. I really don't believe this little bad apple, as it is going to ever going to change. Never, ever, 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 ever. And so I said, give me a chance to prove to you that there's an alternative besides beating the guys up into being good. It makes no sense. So we would go to the judges, right? To tell them, Your Honor, I promise you, this guy has changed. He's a new person, peace building and all. He's going to contribute to society. So this is us trying to convince the judge, I promise you this guy's changed. And they've been through the Yo Cambio program, right? And everybody looked at us with that face. Yeah, right. So we had to create a program in 18 months. This is my team. See that little guy on top of that's my team. 18 months. $500,000 for 18 months, the entire team. We had to create a rehabilitation program that was evidence-based and that would convince potential employers, judges, and everybody else that people had changed. So we were, what was that impossible, Mission Impossible music? How'd it go? Please? Dun, 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 dun. Thank you. And everybody's like, for real? Is that what you're gonna do? Where is the evidence? So, key sections of the Second Chances program are, this is for inside. So we've created an evaluation tool that measures behavioral changes aligned with the legal requirements to be able to go out for parole or to be released. And the I Am Ready program, which is a CBT, do you know what that is, CBT? There you go. She's helping me out. Our focus is an ecological focus, and how we go about the process is something that we call binding, which is how we change inside. Bonding, which is how we change our relationships, and the bridging, because the impact has to be on the social level. I Am Ready is that cognitive behavior curriculum that was created by Catholic Relief Service and Mockingbird Education. And the tool that evaluates that process, the impact of the curriculum, was done by the Universidad Centroamericana José Simeón Cañas. Can you repeat that? There you go. Thank you very much. Content is the same. So you talk to the technical teams, and they will tell you, but that curriculum, what's so cool about that? It is the same content that you would receive in any other of the programs they already had. What was the difference? How we deliver that curriculum with grace and style in order to engage people, to learn how we learn so that it would stick better to our brain. And so we do that with technique, with purpose, resources, science, and method. And at the same time, all of the team, I'm the boring person in my team. So they have not only passion for what they do, lots of knowledge for what they do, they believe that change is possible, but overall, they have the grace to make something really boring into something super exciting and new for everybody. This is what we actually, the tool that we have, this is what we actually measure. Emotional regulation, aggressiveness, self-esteem, forgiveness, attitude towards authority, which is very interesting, and empathy. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. We have not only the qualitative data, but also quantitative data with the tool. Some results to date. So for 965 participants, what the curriculum, not only the Peace Building and the I Am Ready program, gives them tools to help them manage their emotion and have self-control, and helps them set goals. But can you talk to your neighbor and ask your neighbor what would be their most immediate goal in life? Ask them. Talk to your neighbor. Got you thinking, huh? If you hear me, can you clap once? If you hear me, can you clap once? If you hear me, can you clap twice? If you see me, can you clap? Did you guys know how to clap? Have you had any food today? If you see me, can you clap? Thank you very much. So what did you hear from your neighbor? Yes? What? Get to the airport on time. Those are immediate goals. What else did we hear? In 3 years? Publish within 3 years. Wow. I wish that was my goal. So this is what we do with the guys, to create immediate goals, but we can all dream. I hope you get to the airport on time. I hope you get published in 3 years. But what are the steps that you are going to take to get there? So that's what we do. Little steps. If you are on third grade, there's this woman that I'm very excited. She wants to go back to school. She has third grade. She just came out of prison. Hi. And she wants to go to the university. She is more than 60 years old. She is so excited about going back to school. So do I want her to stop that dream? Absolutely not. But I want her to be real about when she can accomplish that and how many steps does she need to take to get there. What are the resources she has and what are the resources she needs to get in order to accomplish that goal. So part of the curriculum is trying to do that. What are your goals in a personal level? What are your goals in those relationships? And sobre todo, what are your goals to give back to your community? Did I say it was 18 months we're supposed to do all of this? This is a picture of you might have been there, Deborah. This was one of our graduations. And one of the guys here, he said, I haven't hugged my mother in more than 5 years because I was embarrassed to be here and to have let her down. And we did a little gathering that day, and this is what came out of that situation, and everybody was really happy. And she was just like, I'm so proud to see him. and to be able to hug him. It is the simplest thing, but it makes such a great difference. So one of the good things, but bad things at the same time for us is, did I mention only 18 months for all of this to happen? So we started working only CRS, and then we started to have more and more alliances with different people. It was very odd to find. I was ready. When we started to do this whole thing, I was ready for the resistance, right? Like the authorities weren't gonna buy into this peace building in the prison. You've seen the conditions, right? Everybody's looking at me like, you're insane, lady. Which I am, but I don't tell them that at the first, not on the first date. But the surprise has been that everybody has seen results, and they're so excited that the government has actually adopted our curriculum. So now I'm trying to tell them, hold on, you can't just go about, it's not about remember, it's not about the content. Content is there, and you know the content, but it's about the methodology and how we deliver that. And that takes the only thing that we cannot pay for. What was that? Do you remember? I told you at the beginning. Time. It takes time. It takes effort. You just simply cannot pay a tree to grow faster. It will do it in its own time if it has the right conditions, if you put the water, the sun, and the soil for it to happen. So I'm a little worried because we have achieved something that we're not expecting to achieve so soon. It was going to get there. But now we're like, oh my God, we have to be in 28 different prisons. It's still only us, same ones that started. So we're trying to figure out a strategy in order for us to be able to scale without losing the quality. So this is the second piece of the program, which is Pathways to Employment and Social Reinsertion. And at some point, I made the joke that we had 100% employment reinsertion. Come on. Oh, come on. 100%. Ah. See, I'm not getting love here. 100% employment reinsertion. Thank you very much. Yes. There was one people that got out, one people got a job. So 100% reinsertion. Thank you very much. The truth is that this has been the hardest part of all, because we are not ready as a society to give the second chance to be the good people that we say we are, to be willing to step in and say, I want to change this society, by giving that second chance to a person that at some point in life, for whatever reason, committed a mistake. And we tend to think that that's never going to be us. Well, think again. We never know under what conditions, under what circumstances, we can become little bad apple. So, how are you guys feeling now? Are you falling asleep? Not yet? Soon. It's getting time. And, I go to bed early. Especially they've made me walk all over Chicago. I'm telling you. Think time. And I want you to pay attention to this picture. What do you see? You see guns, money, baby. Everybody's dream come true. Family, money, security. Right? And they went to Disney World. See, this is the reality that we have to live in. We play with death because sometimes we don't have a choice. This is our gatherings, right? Little champagne, little friends here. This is how we relate. This is how we grow up relating in our communities. Why are we surprised then of the result of the human being that had to go through all of that experience? How do we expect to have a different outcome? And then we blame the gangs. We blame the gangs because as the good people, as the good family, we are unable to give our children the right love, the right respect, and they decide to go to a gang to obtain that. That's got to make us think, what are we doing wrong? Second Chances and Catholic Relief Services isn't here to say that this part doesn't exist. This is a reality for us, and I do not want to deny that. But I'm here because I know, despite the worst situations, change is possible. I've seen it happen. I am an embodiment of that change. I could have sought revenge because of my dad's assassination, and I chose not to because I want to stop the cycle of violence. But it's gotta hurt first. We have to go through a process of justice, real justice. And justice not necessarily means that I want to hurt that other person. I wish that that other person, the one that harms, will dedicate the rest of their life to repair something that is unrepairable. But that I am sure at some point they will find someone to help and make a change and make a difference in that person's life. I cannot change this reality. The money, the family, and the security that you see here. At least not right now, at least not on my own. Maybe right now, all that I can create, all that we can create are options and opportunities. So those children actually have a choice. The truth is that they're coming home at some point. I hope that with the work that we're doing, with all the tools that we're giving them, with all the peace building, showing them that they are better than what people say they are, making them believe that they have the power to change their communities and be positive leaders. I believe, I've seen it. I promise you, I've seen miracles happen. I hope that when they come home and they have the right tool to change and transform their family reality. This is one of the stories of, we have a methodology called the most significant change. And this is what one of the guys told him. His name is Melvin from one of the prisons we work in. It says, before second chances, Melvin would react violently to the slightest provocation. He says, I did not value other people. I hurt because that was the only thing I knew. As a peace promoter, Melvin is ready to show his family how he has changed, that he now has self-control over his anger, which was really bad. I thought stigma against ex-cons would push me to migrate. Now I have a second chance, so I want to stay. It is not our first option to leave our family. And given the opportunity to be someone that matters in our society, we will thrive. We all need, as a society, we need that second chance to become and be the person that we think we are, the good ones. And this picture, personally, I am not religious, but I was so impressed about what the guys did in this occasion. What you see here is inside of the prison, in the Santa Ana prison. And on the floor, you see the CRS. This is all salt that is colored in different colors. The paper, they did the farolitos, the lanterns. They can't have any wood, so they've rolled newspaper so tight that they were able to do the frame to the farolitos. And what you see in the back, the Monseñor Romero, Virgin, and there's those 3 paintings in the back. They wanted us to give them manta. How do you say manta? Like cloth. You see, that is gigantic. I'm telling you, it is enormous. And we didn't have the funds to give them. So I said, does paper work? So we gave them 3 resmas de papel, so a full, reams of paper. And they glued them, piece by piece. They glued them all together and did those 3 paintings. I have no idea how they're standing up there. It's puro papel. But that gives you an idea of how amazing and creative they could be. This is an example of what it means for us, to be a tiny little team, but at the same time to create all sorts of different alliances. In there you see the judge that oversees this particular prison. The warden of the prison is there. All of the guys in blue are the peace promoters that just graduated. There's NGOs, there's people from the CRS office staff, but the administrative people, accountants. We always bring them into the prison because it's hard to describe what happens there. But believe me, when you go in, you come out a different person. So this is an example. What you see on the floor, again, it's a painting that they did. Now, they have this mandala permanently there on the floor in the prison. And let me close by saying this. Every time I go and talk about how you can do peace building inside of the prison, every time the answer is that's impossible. And I always come back saying that impossible only takes a little tiny bit longer. It is impossible to be here in Chicago for me. I should have been killed many years ago. And yet, for the solidarity and good heart of many people like yourselves, I am here today, contando la historia. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you very much, Rosa. We have time for one audience question. We're almost out of time. Would anyone like to ask a question of Rosa? Yes, sir. And a mic is on its way.
Well, first of all, congratulations and thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing. I think that's phenomenal. One topic that I didn't hear you mention is drug addiction, which I believe is a huge contributor to this problem. Do you address it somehow in the rehabilitation process, or how do you deal with that?
Thank you for that question. This program, we're very tiny still. And obviously the drug addiction is one thing that people struggle with. This curriculum is not designed to treat or to do detox on drug addiction. What we've learned, though, is that people that are not on the highest level of addiction have learned to change their behavior and their patterns, and is helping them. But we don't say that that this will help you with drug addictions, because that is a whole new world that myself, I couldn't say that that's what we do. But there is a program that is government run. Like I said, they do have some other curriculums, and drug addiction is one of them. But definitely, if there's anything that we need to improve nationally, because this is inside of the prison, and they just simply don't get it. But outside, many of the young people that we work with on prevention do need go through detox, and we don't have the means to be able to do that.
Please join me in thanking our 2019 Gus Hart Visiting Fellow, Rosa Anaya, and thank you to the Hart and Lansing families again for their generosity.
Thank you.